Hey guys, so today I'm here with a first look at several new Windows Phone 7 devices. So of course Microsoft this morning has announced a ton of new devices, so I'm going to go ahead and cover 3 of them here for you today. So the first one is going to be the HTC HD7, which is very similar to the previous HD2, only the fact that it has a few key upgrades, namely Windows Phone 7. So if you didn't know, the HD2 was a very solid piece of hardware. The main problem was that it did run the previous version of Microsoft's operating system. However, now that it's been updated to Windows Phone 7, as well as it has a few minor tweaks such as a little bit different button placement, a few minor tweaks around the phone, as well as a bump to 720p video recording, it definitely looks like a very solid upgrade. Now to just go ahead and run over the specs really quickly here, it does have a 4.3-inch display with a resolution of 800 by 480, a 1 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon processor, 576 megabytes of RAM, a 5 megapixel camera with dual LED flash, and of course Windows Phone 7. So this one looks really solid. I was always a big fan of the HD2, but now that it has Windows Phone 7 as well as a few minor upgrades, it definitely does look very impressive. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the HTC 7 Mozart. So this is one of the more higher end phones, and you can definitely tell why when you take a look at it. So to start off with, it does have a 3.7-inch display, as well as a 1 GHz Snapdragon processor, 576 megabytes of RAM, as well as 8 gigabytes of onboard storage and a 720p camera. However, it definitely does look a little bit better than the other one, especially considering that it does have an aluminum unibody design. Now personally, I really like the look of it. It looks very modern, definitely what you would expect to see in a Windows Phone 7 device. In addition, it also does have a 3.7-inch display, which, while a bit smaller than a lot of the other Windows Phone 7 devices, I definitely do think that's a nice sweet spot. That's definitely a good place for a screen to be. One of the more important things about the Mozart is that it does have an 8 megapixel camera with a xenon flash, which is definitely something you're not going to be able to see in many other cell phones. Now let's take a look at what my personal favorite device that was announced today, which is the Dell Venue Pro. Now this one was previously known as the Dell Lightning. I'm not really too fond of the Venue Pro name. However, there's no doubt that the phone itself is very solid looking. So it does have a 4.1-inch AMOLED display. However, the really interesting thing is the form factor. It is a portrait QWERTY slider. Now this is not something you really ever see with a phone with that big of a screen. And I'm really interested to see how it does work out in the real world. Now it will be, of course, exclusive to T-Mobile at the beginning. However, that doesn't say anything about it maybe coming to AT&T or some other carrier later on. As far as specs go, it does have a 1 GHz Snapdragon processor as well as a 5 megapixel camera. Now, this is pretty much all of the phones really that have been announced today have very similar specs. So the major differentiating factor definitely is going to be the design as well as the form factor. And I think that the Venue Pro definitely has something going for it now. Okay guys, so that's it for my first look at all of the new Windows Phone 7 devices for T-Mobile. So HTC HD7, that looks pretty good in my opinion. I'm glad that they finally did update the HD2, although I don't think it's going to be, the best Windows Phone 7 device. Definitely not a bad one at all. The HTC 7 Mozart, however, definitely does look very cool. I'm really liking the design of it. It looks very solid. And of course, with that 3.7-inch display, it's going to be a little bit smaller, but it should fill sort of a premium niche for the HTC phones. However, my pick absolutely is going to be the Dell Venue Pro. I think that it's going to be hard to beat it as far as just the mix of the 4.1-inch AMOLED display as well as the very unique form factor. Considering that all these phones have very similar specs, of course it really is going to come down to what kind of design, what kind of form factor you like. And in that case, I definitely think that, in my opinion, the nod has to go to the Venue Pro. Anyway guys, thanks for watching.